Hi everyone, I'm APM Ambassador Ellie Cole, and today we'll be discussing visual impairment and the vital role of accessibility in both in employment and in everyday life. I'm so delighted to introduce you to today's guest, Ayesha, and her beautiful seeing eye dog Princess. And together we're going to explore the unique barriers faced by individuals with visual impairments in the workplace and discuss practical steps that employers can take to create more inclusive environments. We'll also touch on the importance of community support and awareness in making public spaces accessible for everyone. Ayesha, thank you so much for joining us today and bringing along a very special guest as well, Princess, who is still awake, but I don't think will be by the end. Yeah. Not because of the content of the conversation, because it's a very relaxing environment to be in. Are you able to introduce your name, your age, and your role at APM?
So my name's Ayesha Patterson, I'm 32 and I'm a LAC Community Capacity Builder at APM Communities.
Now tell us about where you grew up.
I grew up in Mandurah, which is south of Perth. Lived there my whole life and I still live there. It's great because you can be close to Perth to get to and from, but you're not in the city.
Yeah, and what was it like growing up there?
Everyone knows everyone, and you kind of have that environment now, like with my work, people come in and like, hi Ayesha, and I'm like, and they go, how do you know that person? I'm like, oh, went to high school with them or did some community work with them, which is kind of cool.
And tell me about what it was like going to school in Mandurah. Did you go to a school that helped you with your vision impairment, or what was your schooling like?
My schooling, I went to a private school, but I didn't advertise that I had a disability. Mm-hmm. I had very good vision at the time that I thought, but even though I could hardly see anything, and I just wasn't accepting of the disability. It took me a while to accept, so I wore magnifying glasses because glasses were cool.
Glasses were cool?
Yeah.
That's a bit backwards from what I grew up with.
I know. And I would borrow my friends' notes and everything just so I could still do school, and I learnt how to listen a lot, and I didn't use any equipment or anything until after high school.
So it sounds like when you were growing up, even with a disability, you really learnt how to adapt to your surroundings very, very quickly and just to make things work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really amazing skill to have, and I think a lot of people in their communities are really starting to identify a lot of the strengths that people with disabilities have, and there's so many stories like yours where you have difficulty navigating some things in everyday life, but you just happen to find a way around it. And it sounds like you had friends there that were helping you with your notes.
Yeah, they did. But that was my stubborn stage.
Yeah. You mentioned before it was a little better when you were younger.
Yeah, so my vision has been getting worse as I get older. It will lead to complete blindness. So the condition I have, the cells in my retina are dying. Mm-hmm. So all the ones that are in charge of your peripheral vision, night vision, colour, depth, and then I have cataracts over the top as well. So that makes life interesting.
I bet it does. Do you have memory when you were younger of ever being able to see clearly, or is it something that has been degrading over since you were a young child?
Before I was 4, so one of those random circumstances, I was bitten by a redback and I didn't get the antivenom and it caused the eye condition.
Really?
So before that, I could remember seeing stuff. And
what was it like for you to grow up and go to school with a disability? You said that you were very good at camouflaging it for a while, but I'm sure the penny dropped eventually. Oh,
yes. The penny did drop with a lot of people, but I've just met up recently with a school reunion and I turned up there with my seeing eye dog and they're like, really, you're blind? What? We had no idea. And then other people like, yeah, we knew. But yeah, it wasn't until after I left high school that I actually accepted my disability and said, stuff it, I don't care what people think, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really empowering to get to that point as well. And I heard you mention before that it took you a while to accept having a disability yourself, let alone sharing that information with the rest of the world, which, you know, you should only do so if you feel like you're in a comfortable and safe environment to be able to do that. So what was it like for you to take the time and digest that information and come to terms with the fact that you did have a disability and come to terms with accepting that part of yourself as well?
It was the best thing I ever did. And, you know, accepting that, and because now, like, everything that's happened in my life is all mainly because of I have a disability, which is great. That it's led to lots of opportunities, and being able to share and empower and advocate for others has been great, and also for myself.
What kind of opportunities are you speaking to when you say that having a disability has led to a lot of opportunities in your life?
So it led to me to be able to travel around Australia a lot because I got to represent WA with sport.
Really? You're an athlete?
Oh, pass. I'm injured, so I don't do sport now.
I can't believe you've waited 15 minutes to tell me you're an athlete.
Yeah, so I used to do goalball and then 10-pin bowling.
So how did you become involved in the goalball team? I know quite a few of the girls.
Yeah, so I was looking for something to do and a sport, something to keep me busy. And this youth person who's in Blind Sports Australia, WA here, was like, we've got this sport, we're looking for female people, do you want to come and have a go? And I went up to Perth and watched it, and I was hooked like straight away, and then competed and represented WA and all that from 2012 to 2015.
Incredible. Did you ever make the Australian team?
No, almost.
And then you became injured?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised to hear that you became injured, because from my experience playing goalball and from what I've seen, it is brutal.
It is.
Absolutely brutal on your body.
Yeah, at the time, there was only 4 or 5 women, so we were competing against the guys every training session, which was very chaotic. And then, I took up 10-pin bowling from 2016 to 2020.
As someone who had joined an inclusive sporting team in terms of goalball, as well as your 10-pin bowling, what was that like for you to be able to step into a whole new community there based on sports?
It was amazing to people to not think about disability, because we all had different disabilities. A lot of people would forget that you actually had a disability, which was awesome. And then having the confidence in your coach to be able to say you can compete against other people was really cool.
I find it really interesting just then when you said a lot of people forget that they had a disability, because in my experience I forget all the time.
Oh, yeah,
it's fascinating to have a difference or impairment, and it's almost like you yourself don't feel any differently until someone else tells you that you are.
Yeah.
And so when you step into a team or a place that's really inclusive, no one's telling you that you are different, and it can be really empowering, don't you think?
It's so empowering, yeah. And I find that with my role at APM as well, being capacity builder, I'm making sure that the community is accessible, and also people with disabilities, they feel empowered. And I had someone come up to me last week they had a full conversation with me, and they never did that before, 12 months ago, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
Now, I see that you've brought Princess along here today.
Yeah.
You have a seeing eye dog. What role does Princess play in your day-to-day life?
What doesn't she do? She's my sidekick.
Well, she guided you in pretty well today.
Yeah, so she's my eyes, literally. If I didn't have her, I would be banging into stuff, and she gives me lots of independence to be able to get out and about. And
what was your life like before Princess came into your life? What is it like now that she's in your life?
So there was a gap between the 2 dogs, because she's my second dog, and I was on a wait list for 4 years between the 2 dogs. And going from full independence, having a dog, to going back to my cane and having to relearn how to use a cane, and then also having my eyesight to, go down quite a lot in that space. I noticed that I wasn't doing a lot of stuff. What I used to do, I would rely heavily on friends and support just to be able to go out and about.
Yeah.
But now I can get on the bus and go to the shopping centre and meet up with a friend for a coffee, or go up to Perth for our favourite activity. Me and my friends would go to Fringe Festival. So, this year I was actually able to meet her at a really nice place and go to the theatre, which was great.
Walking throughout your community, accessing the communities, what's some of the biggest challenges that you face just in day-to-day living?
A lot of people try and patter while I'm giving her commands or walking, which can distract her and me. I call them ninja patters because they just quickly put their hand down and try and pat, and then they walk off. So yeah, me and my friends, we call them ninja patters. And then the other issues I have a lot is taxis and Ubers, unfortunately. A lot of them refuse. I've had some try and put the dog in the boot of the car, or they see the dog and they drive past, it's not always an ongoing issue all over Australia, unfortunately, for refusals for taxis and Ubers.
I've heard a lot of experiences, and I've read a lot of, I've seen a lot of media about that as well.
Yeah.
About people that use seeing eye dogs trying to access any kind of transport and the difficulties that they face with that. And that can be really challenging and a huge barrier for people to be able to access communities as well.
Yes, totally. But buses and trains, they're great, Sometimes you have or you find a really good taxi driver like I have at home, and he picks me up for work, drops me off at home.
What about some of the challenges that you face day to day just living with a vision impairment?
Challenge. I try and not look at it as challenges or limitations, like limits, and try and come away with solutions. The most frustrating thing is trying to find like the right top or the right pair of shoes. Normally I wear multicoloured flats, Mary Jane shoes, and the other day my friend goes, you realise you're wearing the two different shoes? And I'm like, oh, oopsies.
I'm sure she understands.
Yeah, so we ran back into the house, and we found the other shoe, but it was just hilarious.
You know what? I've actually done that quite a few times myself because I don't have a vision impairment, but when I go to bed, I leave a shoe on my prosthetic.
Yep.
And then when I was an athlete, I used to wake up in the middle of the night almost to go to swimming training, so I would get changed in the dark. So I guess it is similar. And because I already had a shoe on my foot, I would just grab what I thought would be the right shoe. And the amount of times I went to training with two different shoes on, because I couldn't feel the difference in the shoes either.
Yeah.
One of my feet was plastic.
Of course.
So it's quite common.
Yeah.
What are the assumptions that people make about vision impairments that are the most common things that you see people make assumptions about?
I think the biggest assumption is that they think that everyone with vision impairment can read Braille, and I don't. And a lot of people in the community actually don't read Braille. A lot of people do, but not everyone.
When you were growing up, what was it like for you to be able to access employment? Because I know in my community where I grew up in Victoria, everybody wanted a job at the age of 14. And, it was pretty difficult for me to even get a job with a physical impairment. For you, what was it like trying to gain employment when you were able to enter the workforce?
It was so challenging. It took me forever to get jobs. And then I would have, go to TAFE, do all the qualifications, and then you would go and try and, find a job. You put the interview in, and then the biggest barrier was, do you have a driver's license? And I'm like, no. Why do I have a driver's license? You don't want me driving. And then as soon as you would tick no, that would be it, and before APM, I was working, I was able to find casual employment for non-for-profits, but a lot of the mainstream event management work, as soon as you turned up to interview with a cane or a seeing eye dog, they would go, nope, sorry, we've already filled the position, or, you didn't have a driver's license, so we've given it to the other person, even though we've done the qualifications together, which was really, really sad. And having that knockback, quite affected my mental health, and it's also affected other people's mental health with, you know, the whole applying for jobs. But I was lucky. I managed to get a job through APM Communities through volunteering and then customised employment, which has been great that the customised employment has come about, because a lot of people now with disabilities can actually get a job.
And these types of people that you're speaking about that have been able to secure employment through the customised employment that APM do, they're the people that you were speaking about before who, you know, were being knocked back for jobs and it was affecting their mental health.
Yeah, well, I was able to get the job through customised employment, and I've met 2 other people that have managed to get customised employment, not just through APM but other organisations. It's been great.
So what was that process like for you to find APM and then to go through the customised employment, be able to secure a job? What was that process like? Walk me through how you found it, what it was like for you to go through that process, how you felt going through that process.
It was very exciting but daunting at the same time. So I was volunteering on a project that runs, they wanted people with disabilities to help run this project, which I ended up overtaking and running it completely, which was amazing. But so came into volunteering, and then the community capacity builder at the time, APM manager, was like, are you looking, I was talking to him and he said, oh, you're looking for a job? And I said, yeah, because the casual employment that I had, you know, the grant had just run out. He goes, oh, send me through your resume and a list of your skills and experiences. And I sent him through like a 3-page Word document. And he goes, how have you done all that in your whole life? And I was like, yeah, because, you know, you volunteer and keep yourself busy. And he goes, oh, okay, I'll send it through to some people and see if they're looking for anyone. And the next minute I got a phone call from lovely lady Penny and Kerry.
How did that moment feel when, if you think back to a few years ago, fast forward to receiving that phone call 2 months after your interview and then being offered that role? Did that feel like so liberating for you?
Oh yeah, after I got the phone call, I hung up and I did a little dance on the spot and was full on woohooing and rang my mum straight away at work, and she's like, I'm currently at work. I'm like, I got a job. Oh my God, I got a job. And she's like, okay. And, you know, we went out and celebrated because it was the first time, you know, someone had looked at skills and experiences and created a job, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. When you just explained that you had done a little dance and that you were so excited, like I could just see in your body then just how excited you were. That feeling that you had, it must reinforce just how important it is for you to be able to provide that for other people through APM, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm very excited with what I do at APM, and every day is different. Probably the biggest achievement was last year. City of Mandurah won the Accessibility Awards, and I was able to help them win those awards, which was amazing, with all the work done with other people with disabilities to make the town and city more accessible.
It's incredibly empowering. What kind of accommodations did APM make to the workplace in order for you to be able to flourish at work, if any?
So the biggest accommodation is that they made sure I had enough desk space for me and Princess. So we have a corner desk, so I have one side of the desk and she has the other side. So I'm not running over her paws or banging into her. Gave me a tour of the whole office, so I knew where everything was. And then they're like, if there's anything that you need or we need to make more accessible, so I put tactile markings on the microwave, and the tea and the sugar and the coffee. So that was really good that they let me just go in and tactile the on and off power buttons for the microwave, and made sure that I had a space where I can toilet Princess. So I've got a screen reader, JAWS. I had to learn how to use JAWS on my computer. And
JAWS?
Yeah.
What is that?
JAWS Access with Speech.
Mm-hmm.
It's a screen reader. So if you opened up my work laptop, it would start talking to you straight away.
You mentioned before the independence that Princess has given you to your life, but how has employment changed your life?
It gives me a purpose to get up and have a schedule instead of just lazing around and doing nothing or going, I might do this today, but actually I've got work, 3 days a week. It's been great to be able to also have the money aspect as well, which has been great. But yeah, having that set schedule and having a work-life balance has been amazing.
If a workplace, an organisation, a company want to make their place more inclusive for people with vision impairments, what are the things that they need to be considering?
So one of the easiest things would be, if someone walks into your workplace, actually introduce yourself instead of just assuming that they know what they're doing or if they're actually in the right building. Mm-hmm. There's been a few times where I've gone, is this the right building? And saying the person, hello, I'm so-and-so, instead of just started talking automatically. So there's been a few times where someone will come up to me, have no idea who they are, but I just continue talking. And then my friend goes, do you know who they are? I'm like, I have no idea. And just voicing directions. So a lot of people gesture or say, oh, this way or that way. But I think, having specific directions and allowing the person to get lost if they need to. Sometimes getting lost is always the best way to find your way, unfortunately.
It's also a great metaphor for life.
Yeah. And just don't assume, person might walk in with vision impairment, but they might be having a good day and they might be able to see you, or they might be having a bad day, or they might have different fields of vision, so they might be looking away from you, but they're actually seeing you.
So if you were to live in a perfect world where it was completely accessible for you, I'm thinking about what communities can do better to support others with vision impairments. What would a perfect community look like for you?
Perfect community. Something where you can go into somewhere that's fully accessible. Not many people are going to stare at you or go, you have a disability, what are you doing here? Because that still happens.
So a lot of cultural change?
A lot of culture change, and we're really good with the infrastructure changing, but I think a lot of attitude and culture I think needs to change, to make it not for just people with vision impairment, but anyone with a disability, and you would find that too.
I do. Yeah. But do you find it's changing for the better?
Oh,
the
it's
more that
way
people are
changing.
becoming aware and educated around disability.
Yeah. And I think social media has played a huge role in that, because back in the early 2000s, late 2000s, you didn't have social media or people out in the community with a disability. And now it's, your NDIS made the news, and then you've got people with disabilities out in the community running their own businesses or, running their own social media accounts, which is great.
Tell me about your role at APM. What does that involve exactly?
So it's two facets of community capacity building. So one is creating projects in the community to help build people's skills and experience that have a disability. And then the other part is going to local governments and making them be more accessible and inclusive, and making sure that they can understand about disability, but also NDIS.
Yeah. So is that more policy, or is that making the actual government organisations more accessible internally?
So internally, but also just changing their attitudes and the way that they think about disability. Kind of lucky in Mandurah that the person who's the community access inclusion officer, she actually has a disability. She's in a wheelchair and she gets it, but she contacts me and how can we make this more accessible? And the biggest one was last year there's a big huge event called Crabfest, and it's probably the biggest festival that Mandurah has, and I was able to help the whole events team for the City of Mandurah make their event more inclusive. You know, there was about 4 of us all lived experience with disability. I think that was the great take, that they listened to actual people with disabilities.
If we look at businesses who want to employ someone with a visual impairment, what advice would you give to a business that wants to support people with vision impairments who are either working there or maybe want to engage someone with a vision impairment to work there?
Don't be scared of employing someone with vision impairment or disability. Look at their skills and try and accommodate or arrange ways that the person can still do their job, and not, give them a task that they can't actually achieve. So, someone who's completely blind, you don't want them to create a visual pin-up board.
And also, if they're wearing different shoes, just go with it. Well, we really do want to thank you so much for coming in today. I have learnt so much about vision impairments, and I know that the rest of the world is also going to learn so much from this video. So I really appreciate your time and your insights today. I really do appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.